This is the Sports Source, presented by Junk Be Gone and Renewal by Anderson. Now, your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. Happy to have you with us today. We have a big show for you. Tennessee got walloped last night, as you know, at Rupp Arena. We'll discuss that. We'll talk about the end of the win streak and what does that mean for Tennessee's SEC title hopes. What does it mean for the NCAA tournament moving ahead? We got some interesting stats, some good, some bad. We'll let you look at them however you want. Tell us what you think via Twitter. We will also talk a little bit of football today. In terms of the football staff, some surprises in what Jeremy Pruitt did this offseason. We'll discuss all that. Let's get right into it. First segment of our program brought to you by Renewal by Anderson. It is their big President's Day sale. Get your free quote and schedule installation by February 28th and get 15% off all windows and patio doors. Plus, get an additional $25 off every single window you buy. That's a terrific deal for terrific windows and patio doors. Renewal by Anderson. Visit them, call them, check them out online. Renewal by Anderson. All right. I want to welcome in our panel for the day. We have right here, it's the original crew. We have Bob Hodge, Mike Strange, Jimmy Himes, Chuck Cavaleris. Thanks to all of you for being here on this cold, wet Sunday. Vols got slapped around 86-69 at Rupp Arena. Their 19-game win streak came to an end. Their run at number one will come to an end. And basically, I think there are four faces of Vol fans today. And let's take a look at the number one is dang refs. Those Rupparees, they stole it. That's the first phase. The second face, you might be this guy. They're frauds. I knew they weren't real. They're not good. The third face, I told you they'd lose. I knew they'd lose in Kentucky. I told you they'd lose. And then the fourth phase, 23-2. What's the problem? So my question, guys, where are you today? What's your reaction coming out of that Tennessee-Kentucky game last night? Are you panicking? Are you upset? Are you, these happen? Where are you?
I'm going to go with face number 4 and concerned. Not panicky, not worried, but I think there is concern by the way Tennessee played last night. And the thing that I thought Tennessee looked intimidated, especially in the first half. The refs were letting them play. It was a physical game, and I thought Tennessee looked a little bit intimidated during that time.
I'm like one of the Batman villains. I'm Two-Face. I'm face 3 and 4. I thought they would probably lose up there, but again, it's 23-2. It's not the end of the world. I thought that team, it looked like business as usual of a Tennessee team going to Rupp Arena. This has been a special team this year. They didn't look like a special team last night. It looked like a team, out of some other eras that weren't very good, that went up there and just got handled.
One of the things that looked different, and it's something Bob just mentioned, was that they looked intimidated. I thought it looked like Kentucky took the fight to them from the beginning. Kentucky looked like they wanted it more, and for most of this season, that's not something you've been able to say about this Tennessee team. Now, it is college basketball. We all know, and we've said all year what happens on the road, especially places like Rupp. These things happen. But last night, I thought that was the first time this year where I looked at Tennessee and thought, yeah, you don't want it as much as the other guy. Jimmy, what was your take on that one?
I'm kind of with Mike. I'm in between 3 and 4. But here's the deal also. Remember a year ago when Alabama hammered Tennessee? What happened after that? Tennessee regrouped. You're going to have some games like that unless you're just a super team. And so I wasn't that concerned about Tennessee going forward. Yeah, they do have a couple of areas where they need to shore up, but I fully expect this team to bounce back from that, just like they did after they got blown out by Alabama a year ago.
Yeah, and when you look at what you have coming up, to me, I would say the face number 4, but you still got this stretch coming up. To me, it's like a new season. And I'm not even sure the Boston Celtics could have won at Kentucky last night. In that environment and the way Kentucky played great.
They did. Jay Billis, I thought, nailed it when he said that that's the best they played all year, and that looked like the team that was supposed to be number 1 in the country. If they played like that all year, they wouldn't.
And Calipari made a really interesting comment that I think Tennessee fans need to take heed of after the game. The loss to LSU just earlier in the week at home by Kentucky, he said we needed that. We needed to get knocked in the head. That's a direct quote, and they responded like Jimmy's saying. Let's see how Tennessee responds.
But you know what? And I agree with that. I think Tennessee probably did need a little bit of a reset. I'm not so sure that the pressure of being number 1. I mean, that pressure carries over into practice and during the week. It's not just in the game. but I don't think you wanted to reset it that way. I think, to Chuck's point, if you'd have gone up there and you'd have lost by 3 or 4 and played a good game, you get your reset. But to go up there and lose the way they did is a little bit more concerning, not just because of Kentucky, but because Kentucky represents the kind of team you've got to run through in the Final Four. Just really, really, really athletic.
True. Again, the national championship talk. I've had a lot of people
Or I should
tell
say
me,
to get to the Final
yeah,
Four.
I've had a lot of people say that to me. So, well, when you get to the Final Four, it's like,
Yeah,
when
come
you
on.
get to the Final Four,
No,
let's pump the brake. You realize
Getting
Tennessee's
to the
never
Final
been
Four,
there.
you're going to see them.
To Bob's point, the concern I had was the physicality.
Yeah.
That bothered Tennessee, no question about it. And it also was represented on the rebounds. It was, what, 39 to 26?
Oh, let's go ahead and show that
in
one.
that one.
So
So
let's
that,
put up the box score woes.
Right.
None of these numbers were good, but you see the rebounds there.
yeah,
The young team of freshmen and sophomores, with the exception of that grad transfer, really out-toughed a team of juniors and seniors.
that's
With
the
Grant
concern.
Williams and Admiral Schofield.
Yeah.
Another thing you don't normally see.
Yeah. There were 3 areas in that box score that concerned me the most as we looked at that. One would be the rebounding differential. The other one would be that Kentucky shot 55% to 41%. Here's the other one. Tennessee's 3 best shooters were 1 for 17 on threes. Their 3 best shooters. And a lot of, there were some open looks that they missed.
Yes.
They settled for jumpers more than they should have, but some of those were wide open and they still missed them, which, you know, Mark Pancratz said last week, one of the things that makes Rupp tough is not just the crowd, but also the shooting backdrop's a little odd, so maybe that had something to do with it. But either way, it wasn't good. Let's take a look at the double-digit minutes. Here's my concern. I've mentioned this. I showed you last week. Of the top 5 teams in the country, Tennessee's the only one with 3 guys averaging 31 or more minutes. Last night, 4 guys at 31 or more minutes. I wonder how much of this is tired leg syndrome a little
And
bit.
it did look like, so I've had people mention that too. It looked like a tired basketball team. And you know, Grant Williams needs to stay on his feet more. I mean, I know he got knocked around some, and maybe it was, you know, a dirty play here or there, but he hits the deck more than anybody I've ever seen in
Yeah,
some
and there were a
games.
couple of those where it didn't look like you needed to.
No, I
feel
mean,
like,
stay on your feet,
I mean,
you know.
Well, and I think the number, minutes that you showed right there playing against Kentucky, I think we've kind of gotten a little bit more enamored with Tennessee's depth than Tennessee's depth really allows you to get enamored with. Because if you had better depth, you wouldn't have seen that kind of minutes in a game that was
Right, and
played
that
like
was,
that.
to me,
Right.
that was
That's
the
what I've
kind
been
of
saying
game you
for 2
need
weeks.
Pons out there more. You need him matching up with some of their bigger, taller, more physical athletes. And I saw an unselfish team look very selfish, to me, is what I saw. And the thing
what
I would be
Martin
most
said, of
troubled
course.
with, you're only down 6 at half, right? You get outscored 14-0 to start the second half.
0 for 4, your first 4
Yes,
shots.
that's what would be the most troubling part to me, because you still had a chance to win that ball game.
Grant Williams, your player of the year, took 4 shots. Now you got a couple more that they don't count because he got fouled, but that's not very many shots. And what, half of them are 3-pointers. So
Yeah.
he didn't get anything done
Yeah.
in the paint, and P.J. Washington just abused Tennessee in the paint.
He outplayed Williams. The other thing about the depth, I think Tennessee's got 1 guy off the bench they can count on, Jordan Bowden. Other than that, they don't have much. And the concern there is that if you do have an inside player that gets in foul trouble, who's going to come off the bench? If Alexander gets in trouble, if Grant Williams gets in trouble, who's your inside guy you can count on each game? I think that's a concern for
Well,
this team.
you're kind of in the same spot you were in last year when Alexander got hurt and he doesn't play against Loyola Chicago and you lose by a point. No knock on John Fulkerson, but he's not Kyle Alexander, at least not yet. And you're right, you don't have someone else over there. And I think that's not only are you worried about tired legs, and that some of these other teams can go deeper than you can, but you're still praying nobody twists an ankle. I mean, you are a twisted ankle away from seriously bad issues. And how lucky is this team that Lamonte Turner came back when he did? Can you imagine this roster without Turner as being a part of it? Now, all that negativity, that's how people will take it. But I will say, Joe Lenardi of Bracketology there on ESPN said last night, it probably drops Tennessee from the second number 1 seed to a lower number 1 seed, but they would still be a number 1 seed if the tournament selection committee was picking today. So it's the difference between college basketball and college football. You can lose a couple of these in basketball and not have the season end. All right, later, what do historical numbers say about Tennessee's Final Four chances this year? We'll get to that Final Four talk. That's a little later. But next, who's now the favorite to win the SEC? We'll show you the schedules for Tennessee, LSU, and Kentucky. I don't know that it's the Vols. Come on back.